In this mini-series, we're shining a spotlight on a remarkable group of leaders who are reshaping the future of the Liberal Party and of Australian politics. Each episode features a one-on-one conversation with a different emerging leader, giving them space to share their own story, their motivations, and the experiences that shaped their path. They come from a wide range of cultural, professional, and community backgrounds with journeys that reflect the diversity of modern Australia. They're all forging their own path in community service, in public life, and in political leadership. And together, their voices paint a powerful picture of the next generation stepping up to lead. Our guest today is Deyi. Deyi's a councillor at Burwood Council and also a manager of regulatory affairs at a big telecommunications company. Deyi, why don't we start with your role on Burwood Council? When were you first elected to council?
So I was elected last year.
Okay.
I've done 1 year of a 4-year term. I started campaigning about a month after I gave birth, which was quite rough. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone, to be honest.
And that was your birth to your first child, right?
First
You
child.
just become a mother for the first time.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we started doing all the campaign materials, going out to train stations. I think it was sheer willpower at that time. I look back on it. But thankfully, we got 2 Libs elected onto council. It's majority Labor, so we've got 5 Labor councillors,
Yep.
2 Libs.
Yeah.
Last time we had 2 as well, so it was good to maintain that.
Was this always part of the plan for you, or did you make a decision
It
at the
wasn't.
last minute? Because obviously it's quite a, if you're having
Yeah.
your first child and then you're running for council, that's a lot on your mind.
Yeah, it wasn't when I joined the party in 2016, I didn't really think too much of local government. I didn't think I wanted to be a councillor. It wasn't really on my radar. But now that I'm in here, you realise that, most things that people touch and see within their community is local issues like traffic, parking, parks. So it's actually really good to have a really in-depth understanding of what people actually care about on the ground.
Yeah.
That's what you get from local government. And it is the nitty-gritty stuff that is, not as sexy as, for example, state issues or federal issues, but that's what people care about. So now I have a very different view of local government than when I joined the party. And I think councillors, if they use their platform well, they can actually make a really big change for that area.
Yeah. And just, in the last 2 years, you've gotten married, had a first child.
Yeah.
You've got a second one on the way, if I can say that. Has being a parent and part of a family kind of changed your view or your approach towards politics and political issues and what matters to Australians?
Yeah, I think...
Or your perspective anyway?
Yeah, for sure. I think the juggle of being a full-time working parent...
Because your husband works too,
also works.
Yep.
I went back to work after 6 months and then he did 6 months parental leave. And after that 1 year, you kind of have to put your kid into care unless you've got a parent to help.
Yeah.
And I think that's really opened my eyes to what kind of, I guess, childhood where most kids grow up these days is in daycares and
different, isn't it?
It's different.
Yeah. Different to when I grew up and probably different to when you grew up as well.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Another thing that's really on my mind these days is housing. So we are in a 2-bedroom apartment. We can just kind of squeeze. We've got 2 adults, 1 kid and 1 cat. We can just squeeze right now and probably another one, while they're in a cot or maybe they're in bunk beds. But if we want to have a 3rd kid, what plagues my mind is that jump from a 2-bedroom apartment to a house in our area goes from about $850K to about $3 million.
I was going to say 1.5 to 2. So $3 million, right?
So it's, and the thing is, because we maybe still plan to have another kid, it means I'll have to exit the workforce for maybe 6 to 12 months.
Yeah.
So I'm reluctant to even take on that bigger mortgage, knowing that that's coming up. So you have to make that decision. Do I have more kids or do I squeeze now or do I, buy a house now while house prices are lower because they're going to keep rising.
Yeah.
Just that value judgment for working parents. And
And it's tough, because you've got obviously 2 incomes and 2 decent incomes. You and your husband are both like professionals in good jobs, but It's fun. I mean, that's the reality these days, isn't it? That every family, it's almost inevitable that both parents are working to be able to afford the mortgage repayments on that house.
And I think if you, like, I've constantly on the banking apps looking at what can I borrow with our current income. If we were to rent out our current one and buy another one, that's probably not feasible because your borrowing capacity is taken up by
It's capped. Yeah.
And that's with two people who are on good incomes. So, the average house in Sydney is about 1.5, 1.6, the medium house price.
Yeah.
You're still even if you can get a 10% deposit or maybe 20%, you're still looking at about 10 grand just towards your mortgage every month.
In after-tax income.
Income.
So that's about, 18 pre-tax income per month.
And I don't think we could afford that right now. So I don't know how people who have lower incomes than us manage unless you make the decision, okay, I'm going to move out to Camden, for example. But even Camden, their houses are about 1.2 million.
Yeah.
So it's not any easier by, uprooting your family from friends and other family you have in the area. It's just the reality of living in Sydney.
Yeah. And this isn't obviously your first political role because you're president of the New South Wales Young Liberals for a year as well.
A year and a bit, yeah.
A year and a bit, yeah. Did that, you did that, then you've decided to run for local council. Did that sort of increase your appetite for politics because it's quite an important position and a lot of people have been president of the New South Wales Young Liberals. I think Gladys Berejiklian was one. There's probably quite a few others whose names I'm forgetting.
Yeah.
But it's often a sort of a political stepping stone or pathway. Did that stint give you a bigger appetite for elected office? And
I think what being in that position showed me was what you say on certain issues and what you don't say sometimes is really how you can make your mark.
I say.
What issues you choose to pursue, who you choose to go and help out during a federal election campaign or a state election, like all those small decisions add up to a bigger kind of
impressional.
cultural change within the organization. So the time when, I think it was 18 months before I was even elected, it is kind of that long campaign. Do you want to do this? If you do, you need to go and do all these things. You need to get on the previous executive. So it was a decision that I made a long time before I actually got elected, but it was a very active decision. Okay, I want to do this because I do think that the party at the time needs change, different conversations need to be had. And then when I was elected, I think it was when the Brittany Higgins scandal was all happening as well. So navigating that, dealing with media, it was a learning curve. It certainly made me think, do I want to do this at an even bigger level as an actual politician?
You mean what, with more scrutiny and your interest?
Yeah, and like the lack of privacy that comes with that as well. Even local council, like if you look at the nomination form, you have to divulge all of your financial details.
Yeah.
Like I'm quite a private person, so to do that, it was the YLs was definitely a stepping stone to make me feel more comfortable than just going straight into being a councillor, I would say.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah.
And how's the Liberal Party changing? Because you've seen the YLs and they obviously have generationally different priorities and attitudes and I guess things that are important to them.
Yeah.
How do you think the YLs and the YL movement's changing the Liberal Party or changing the trajectory of the Liberal Party? And what's the sort of the most positive influence they have in that regard? I
think the biggest one would be housing.
Yeah.
So recently the Young Libs worked with Sydney Yimby to support the Liberal Friends of Housing and to launch that.
Yeah.
To be the, kind of the face of it. I think that is a big step because it means that other people within the team can feel comfortable coming out against, potentially the loud NIMBYs within their electorate.
Yeah.
I think if our seats are only represented or our MPs within party room are only represented in certain areas, let's say more affluent, less diverse electorates, then what happens is if those MPs, every time a new development proposal goes up, they reject it and they knock it back or they, talk negatively about it, then it looks like that the rest of Sydney, like Western Sydney, Labor seats are the ones taking the burden
Taking the burden of development.
Yeah. So, at the launch, I spoke there too, and I said, our MPs really need to be careful with how they phrase their opposition, or they need to really look at what their community actually can take, because some of these proposals are very reasonable, 4 to 6 stories. In Burwood, we have apartments up to 40 stories.
I was going to say up to 20 at least.
Yeah, 40 stories.
Correct.
We're the second smallest LGA. We are taking in so much housing.
The best nightlife in Sydney too.
Best nightlife.
We got so read.
Yeah, we got voted 16th coolest neighbourhood in the world.
I did see that.
So
it's a big accolade.
It is. It is. And that's because the council's very innovative. We are very small, so they have to be very smart with how they plan and master plan the city.
Yeah.
And making sure that we have enough green space for the amount of housing that you do put in. So that's kind of why I wanted to be part of the Burwood Council. Even though I don't live in Burwood Council, I live in Canada Bay Council.
Yeah.
Burwood is kind of where I grew up. And actually, when I nominated, the previous term of Burwood Council didn't have anyone of Chinese background.
Right.
And I find that really strange.
Yeah, because we think of it as such a strong
Chinese community.
Area.
Yeah. And 33% of the population is someone of Chinese ancestry.
Yeah.
So now we have 2 people of Chinese background on Burwood Council, one from the Labor team, one from the Liberal team. But yeah, I definitely made a conscious choice in running in Burwood instead of my local area. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your ancestry. Like, what's your family history? How did they come to Australia? What's the background?
So my mum and dad are both from mainland China. Mm-hmm. They met here when they came here over as students.
Oh, right.
They were just
was that in the early 1990s?
Early 90s, yeah.
Okay.
I think Mum came over in 1989.
Right. Okay.
And then the Tiananmen massacre.
I was going to say this is just around post Tiananmen. Yeah. Okay. Right.
And they said, "Look, you students can stay if you want to." And my mum
she decided to stay. Okay.
Yeah. And then have a family, and that's how we.
And your dad was here studying.
He was studying here too.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And he offered the same thing. He was studying. He was allowed to stay on.
I think so. I think they were all part of that, generation.
And then where did you grow up? In Burwood?
In Burwood.
Yeah.
So I went to Burwood Public School.
How big was the Chinese community in Burwood at that time?
I think it was not as big as now.
Yeah.
But definitely not as proudly as now.
Okay.
Now it's we have a Chinatown, here are all our Chinese restaurants. It's very cool to be a young, Asian Australian in Burwood. But back then it was predominantly a low-rise residential suburb. You had a lot of Lebanese. I think there were still Greeks, Italians, but they've largely moved out of the area now. So that demographic has definitely shifted.
Yeah, I see. I see. That's interesting. And so you said you're one of 2 Chinese ancestry councillors on Burwood Council, but before this time there hadn't been any. Is that right?
I think there was one.
Yeah. Okay.
Because when I questioned the current mayor, who's Labor, I was like, "Why don't you have anyone on your team? If you've got 5 people that you're nominating, surely at least one of them will have Chinese ancestry." But he's like, "Oh, we've got one now that's on our team now." But I don't think it was a priority.
Yeah.
For either parties, to be honest.
Yeah. And something that strikes me, we were talking about the Young Liberals before and your leadership of it, is that my sense is the membership of the Young Liberals is more cosmopolitan, more diverse, more representative than the Liberal Party at large.
Yeah.
And we seem to have people from different, more varied ethnic, religious, national backgrounds in the YLs.
Yeah.
I guess, what's the general, how does that make the Young Liberals, I guess, different attitudinally to the party at large? And my other question is, can we keep that level of interest that we have in the YLs and sort of make sure it flows into the broader Liberal movement?
To answer your second question first, I think we definitely can, but the party has to do a good job in itself in making sure that their members want to stay involved and want to be a Liberal card-carrying member.
Yeah.
Because what I've seen is people who join, 18, 19, 20, they stay involved, very active for a few years.
Yeah.
But then as they grow older and they see the party not going in the direction that they thought it would, or not representing them, or they feel, a level of embarrassment that they are a Lib amongst their peers, that's when you see the decline, the drop-off in membership.
Yeah.
Not to mention, work, family does pull you away.
Yeah.
But I don't think the party does a good enough job of at the parliamentary level, the things that they say and the things that they do, I don't think represent what the young people want to see our, basically our role models doing.
Do you get a lot of questions from other parts of the Chinese Australian community asking you, why are you doing politics, or how do I get involved in politics, or what's it like, or what's the pathway like? Do people sort of seize upon you and your story to help them understand our political system or help them find a way to access it?
I would say people who are Australian-born Asians, Chinese, or Vietnamese, they don't view it as a positive to join politics.
Yeah, okay.
They don't fully get why I'm involved in politics.
Yeah.
When I first joined the party, my mum said, "Don't be involved in politics. It's a dirty business." Because I think,
my dad said the same. My dad didn't like it. He said, "Don't get into politics.
Yeah.
What are you doing, son?"
Yeah. And look, there are some really ugly parts of it, but these people are the people who run our country, who wield all the power. I just don't think that we should vacate the space to the people who want power for the sake of power. So I guess, I never thought that I would be involved even to this day. I joined in university more as a social reason because all my other, girls my age at the time are very left-leaning, and I needed an outlet to talk about right-wing policies. And 9 years later, I'm still involved. So it's a little bit addictive for me, but I think people in the community who grew up like me in Australia, they're not really interested, and I encourage them to be interested because they are affected by it. And I think they aren't affected, but every tax you pay, every decision that is made in Canberra or Macquarie Street, it affects you. You just, I try and tell people, but I think the safe paths for most Asian parents in telling their kids is do law, med,
be a doctor,
engineering, dentistry. It's like, they're safe paths, and you can make a lot of money. And politics is not like a money-making machine either, know? So you really got to be passionate about it to want to stick around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you obviously must, because you're balancing a full-time job, your time on council, and raising a family as well. How do you manage all that? How do you find the time? What are your life hacks?
I have a very supportive partner or husband and a very supportive mum. I think it would be very hard if I didn't have my mum's help, and she lives 5 minutes away from me. But I used to be a lot busier, and I've had to scale it back just because the reality of having a young kid is you need to be home by a certain time.
To do bath time.
To do bath time, dinner.
Yeah.
And by that, by 7:30, you're like done. You don't want to go to any events. So I used to, all the Liberal Party events, you could go to them every single night if you want to. Yeah. But now it's like, okay, I've got to consider my husband. He'll be taking the baby. Therefore, I'll come out once in a blue moon.
Yeah.
And just really picking and choosing which ones I say yes to. Yeah.
Yeah, I see. That's interesting. Well, you talked earlier about just making sure the Liberal Party reflects the concern of modern Australia or modern Australians, and you referenced, I think, a good example is housing and the priority and the frustration that many young Australians have in accessing housing. What are the other issues that you think politics is not doing enough to address that form a kind of core part of the priorities of people of your age and generation?
I think tax.
Yeah.
As you hit towards that mid six-figure, like 150 to 200 mark of income, you're paying a lot of tax.
Yeah.
And for me, if I can tax deduct some of my childcare fees, or if I can, I pay my mum $120 a day for childcare.
Yeah.
So if I can reduce that in some way, because that is still what is required for me to go to work. We deduct uniforms and briefcases and all these other things. It baffles me that the core function of why
the thing that enables you to go to work,
you can't.
It's not tax deductible. Yeah.
I think that is a really big one, allowing that flexibility for either the subsidy to go to like grandparents, to be expanded, or
rather than you having to use the sort of
Childcare.
institutional childcare system. Yeah. I think that's right. I think parents should have a choice.
Yeah.
And they should be able to use their parents or pull with some other parents and get a nanny.
Yeah,
or
that's
choose
true.
childcare if they want.
Yeah, that's true. Right now, it's kind of you only have that one choice
if you want to get
access.
the subsidy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the level of tax you pay,
The level of tax, I was disappointed by the Labor government not addressing the bracket creep issue.
Yeah.
That could have been a game changer. And, it's so hard to change anything to do with tax. So they had the opportunity. I hope the Liberal Party can deliver something like that, because otherwise, like right now, I work full time and I have a council job. What really incentivizes me to pick up, like get a promotion other than, my own ego?
Yeah.
Otherwise, all that money is basically going towards tax. If I take on another job or if I do any, consulting or anything, like it just disincentivizes you.
Yeah.
That needs to be looked at for sure again. What else?
On income tax, I just supposed to think of the other thing, but I mean, income tax now is like the highest percentage of overall tax collected in Australia that's ever been.
Yeah.
I think our reliance on income tax as a sort of source of government revenue is about the second or third highest in the OECD.
Yeah.
And if you look at, the budget is forecast to be in deficit for the next 10 years and then return to surplus, but all the lifting of that return to surplus is being done by bracket creep. So people, basically the income tax take growing, which means people of working age who are often just starting young families and trying to afford a house are the ones carrying most of the burden of the state at the moment, the state functions. And I think that's like grossly unfair that the people who are, raising a family, trying to buy a house are also funding most of the activities of the state.
Yeah.
And I think we need to find a way to address that. It's a generational inequity. Tell me a bit more about your time on council. What's surprised you the most? You're 1 year into your term now, right? Like what's been the biggest eye opener?
It's interesting to see how the council admin staff work with the mayor, work with the councillors, and I think that's kind of like a copy of like the department and the minister and his staff essentially, because previously I hadn't actually interacted with Labor very much at all. It was all internal within our party and understanding the politics of that, but seeing the Labor side and understanding how they operate, which is much more regimented than we are, that's been a bit of an eye-opener.
Yes, okay.
I think also, like, we had this massive plan. It's very complex to explain, but there was the TOD that the state government introduced in Croydon.
Transport-oriented development in Croydon, yeah.
They introduced it, and council Croydon, if you know Croydon, is a very leafy Californian bungalow type, very different to Burwood. Burwood is like the high-rise, right? Like the place where you dump all the apartments. Essentially, council wanted to exempt Croydon from the housing targets and come up with an alternative master plan where they basically put like 90% of the housing back into
new
Burwood.
Development into Burwood. Okay, yeah.
But that wasn't the point. The point is to make Croydon the TOD, when Croydon is closer to the city than Burwood.
Yeah.
So at the time, I had only been in the role like a month. And I think they thought because I was new, I could have the wool pulled over my eyes and I wouldn't read all the documents or whatever it was.
Oh, okay.
And I'd just, vote for their alternative master plan. But residents were really, like residents in Burwood, they were saying, well, we already carry a lot of the housing burden. Like, why isn't Croydon doing their, pulling their weight essentially? And also there was a lot of issues where like the master plan was 300 pages, had a lot of technical jargon that all these residents, some with, very little English ability, had to sift through and try to understand what was happening to their house. So I took the time to contact all of the residents that contacted me, go and meet with them, meet the ones who were for, meet with the ones who were against, and then go through the previous history of this plan that was prior to my council term to try and work out like what had
changed.
Yeah, what had changed, what's been happening. Like the mayor had said in Croydon, no, this area needs to be protected because it's an aspirational area. That's what he campaigned on. So just seeing all that, piecing it all together, and then being in council where I could ask really, intense questions to council and ask them, why did you make the decision? The data that you've created is flawed, because you only ask the people in Croydon, where do you want housing? Of course, they're going to say far away from me. They're not going to say, nearby to me.
Yes.
So then they made the master plan based on that data.
On that survey.
Which is insane. And then that all happened between September and January, and the election was in September. But we managed to change the plan with the community. We got them to do a petition. We did a petition in Parliament, like in New South Wales Parliament. And ultimately they changed it because we made enough noise. But the only reason they made enough noise is because the residents were on board with me. So figuring out how can I, as a minority council member, create change?
Yeah,
and that is with the residents' buy-in and their support. That's the only way, because we just don't have the numbers on council.
So even though you don't have the votes on council, you can still prevent things by the sort of the platform that you have being on council.
Yeah, so that's like one of the things that I go, oh, okay, I actually can make big change. And now those homes are not going to be rezoned to 40-story towers.
Yeah.
A good outcome on that one.
Yeah, that's a great story.
Yeah.
What message would you have to people of Chinese Australian background or other diverse backgrounds who are thinking about getting involved in politics? Because you said, you find a lot of people are like disinterested or almost find politics distasteful.
Yes. I don't disagree with them. You can definitely say that about politics. I just would say that we don't need everyone to be in politics. You don't need 100 people of Chinese Australian or Vietnamese Australian background. It's that representation that people can identify with.
Yeah.
So you just need a few good people in there who can offer a different point of view when the party is, debating on a certain issue, which they often do, to have that lived experience, that life experience where you intimately understand how this would affect a multicultural community or how this would affect, someone with, a foreign-born parent, for example.
Yeah. All
of those add up. All these small things add up to something bigger. And I would say it's if you're interested in history, like you have a lot of politics nerds who are here, you can, talk about history with them. But I would say most people who get involved in politics are very decent people.
Yeah.
They just want good things for their community. They want the country to move in a direction that they would like to see. If you can resonate with that, that's all you really need to join politics. You don't need to have a political background. You don't need to have a surname, be someone's son or someone's daughter, because I certainly didn't. And I've made a small mark within our party. Growing up in Burwood, I never thought that I would be a councillor on Burwood. You just a normal kid going to school there. So if I can do it, somebody else can do it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really powerful point. All right, let's finish with some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
What's the best place to eat in Burwood?
Shebay.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a favourite of yours?
Yeah, it's a go-to.
And what's your favourite dish there? What do you always get?
It's the pork and eggplant dish.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'll have to try that one.
Definitely.
Bubble tea, coffee, chai, what do you drink?
Oh, I am it depends on what time of the day it is, right?
Yep.
Like morning has to be coffee, but every other time I would go for like a pearl milk tea.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in Burwood again?
In Burwood, we have so many milk tea places. So many to pick from. So it depends on do you like milky, non-milky?
What kind of pearls do you like?
Yeah, like what kind of toppings you like.
Yeah. My children are huge fans of bubble tea, I must say, so I do bring them out to Burwood occasionally for that. Least favourite moment on council? What's the thing that annoys you the most?
I would say sometimes the charade of it.
Okay, the theatre.
The theatre.
Yeah.
It's just funny. It's entertaining, but it's kind of like when you see the other councillors patting each other on the back. Oh, you did a really good job. It's like, okay, all right, we get it. You can say this offline. You don't need to say it in front of everyone. But the charade can be quite interesting.
Yeah. And then the best moment on council, like what are the things that really kind of make you think, wow, this is really worthwhile?
I think
you talked about that.
Yeah, I think the win for the Burwood community, just to make sure that the housing master plan was a bit more fair and equitable for the residents. I think that was a big win for me. Yeah.
Yeah. Deyi, thank you so much. You've been so generous with your time and your insights.
Thank you.
It's been lovely to have you as a guest.
Thank you so much for having me.